The question is it possible to build a jetpack using downward-firing machine guns?
I was sort of surprised to find that the answer was yes. But to really do it right, you'll want to talk to the Russians. The principle here is pretty simple. If you fire a bullet forward, the recoil pushes you back. So if you fire downward, the recoil should push you up. The first question we have to answer is, can a gun even lift its own weight? If a machine gun weighs 10 pounds, but produces only 8 pounds of recoil when firing, it won't be able to lift itself off the ground, let alone lift itself plus a person. In the engineering world, the ratio between a craft's thrust and its weight is called, appropriately, the thrust-to-weight ratio. If it's less than 1, the vehicle can't lift off. The Saturn V had a takeoff thrust-to-weight ratio of about 1.5. Despite growing up in the South, I'm not really a firearms expert. So to help answer this question, I got in touch with an acquaintance in Texas. Note, please do not try this at home. As it turns out, the AK-47 has a thrust-to-weight ratio of around 2. This means if you stood it on end and somehow taped down the trigger, it would rise into the air while firing. This isn't true of all machine guns. The M60, for example, probably can't produce enough recoil to lift itself off the ground. The amount of thrust created by a rocket or a firing machine gun depends on two things. 1, how much mass it's throwing out behind it, and 2, how fast it's throwing it. Thrust is the product of those two factors. Thrust equals mass ejection rate times speed of ejection. So if an AK-47 fires 10 8-gram bullets per second at 715 meters per second, its thrust is 10 bullets times 8 grams times 715 meters per second equals 57.2 newtons, approximately 13 pounds of force. Since the AK-47 weighs only 10.5 pounds when loaded, it should be able to take off and accelerate upward. What does all this mean for our jetpack? Well, the AK-47 could take off, but it doesn't have enough spare thrust to lift anything heavier than a squirrel. We can try using multiple guns. If you fire 2 guns at the ground, it creates twice the thrust. If each gun can lift 5 pounds more than its own weight, 2 guns can lift 10. If we add enough rifles, the weight of the passenger becomes irrelevant. It's spread over so many guns that each one barely notices. As the number of rifles increases, the contraption becomes effectively many individual rifles flying in parallel. That means the craft's thrust-to-weight ratio approaches that of a single unburdened rifle. Thrust-to-weight ratio equals number of AK-47s. But there's a problem. Ammunition. An AK-47 magazine holds 30 rounds. At 10 rounds per second, that's just 3 seconds of acceleration. We can improve this with a larger magazine, but only up to a point. Turns out there's no advantage to carrying more than about 250 rounds of ammunition. Fuel makes you heavier. Each bullet weighs 8 grams. The full cartridge weighs over 16 grams. So if we added more than 250 rounds, the AK-47 would be too heavy to take off. The largest versions of this craft could accelerate upward to vertical speeds of nearly 100 meters per second, climbing over half a kilometer into the air. But our AK-47 rig is clearly not a practical jetpack. Actually, what I'm confused about is how. If you somehow braced the human rider, made the craft strong enough to survive the acceleration, wrapped the GS-630 in an aerodynamic shell, and made sure it was adequately cooled, Yes, and you could jump mountains.